So we're just going to keep yapping, just pretending, just in case you can see what we're doing. And
All right, it says we're live.
It says we're live. Hey, how's it going, William?
Good, good.
Happy Friday, happy holidays. Welcome everybody to another Friday live Q&A here at the Edge offices.
What holidays? Happy?
Bah
humbug.
Bah humbug for all. Well, it is the season for most suicides. Oh my God, and I did say I was supposed to mute that. There we go. It is the season for the most suicides.
That's really sad,
That is kind of sad. So if you're out there, be happy. It's a good time of the year. So what are we talking about today, William? It's another live Friday Q&A. One of the big questions that we get is like, hey, what are you guys doing? What are you guys up to? What are we up to?
Oh, so I don't work anymore. I just come into the office and stand at my computer and just pretend to work. And
you just push buttons.
Yeah.
But sometimes magical things happen when you push buttons. And so we'll continue to enjoy you doing that. But we did have a new release last week. By the way, forgive us for last week, a few technical issues. We had a piece of equipment just literally die on us. A mixer died, and so hence we weren't able to do our audio properly and had to cancel last week's live Q&A, but we are live again this week with a backup piece of equipment. Actually, our modem died, our internet had died a few days ago, but that's back up and running, and hopefully we've got a nice fast connection for you guys to see our stream. But we weren't able to cover the new release last week.
We had a release last week, and we also technically had a release yesterday, or it's going out in a couple days?
It should be live actually either today or tomorrow. Just got pushed to the App Store with a few cool fixes and optimizations and whatnot.
Mostly bug fixes.
Mostly bug fixes. You always have to do that every so often. But last week I actually had a release that,
had actually cool stuff in it.
Actually had cool stuff. You want to go over what we did in release? I think it was 1.11.1, something like that. So what do we just add to Edge?
So the main big thing was Art, one of our developers, actually redesigned the visuals on the wallet list scene. So when you first get into the wallet, the first thing you're going to see, your list of wallets there, is going to look a lot better. We're going to have a lot more information, and it's going to be a little bit more spaced out and a little bit better looking. I think it's better looking.
Cool. Yeah, I think too. Information that's being provided. You'll notice, I think, in the older versions or current versions of Edge before this release, the only thing that was provided was the name of the wallet and the fiat value on the right of your wallet.
Well, the thing about that was always annoying is I want to know how many Bitcoins do I have and how many dollars is that worth? And you have to hit that little slider to toggle it back and forth. Now you just have the two numbers right on top of each other.
Yep. And this has always been a big trade-off between kind of the cleanliness of a user interface versus the amount of information you can provide to the user. And as we start to tailor to more kind of as an exchange type of functionality, people expect that their exchanges and the interface for them allows people to really see more information.
On the other hand, you have apps like the Coinbase app, which is very minimalistic, very little information, but then it's not as usable. I don't think it's as usable.
Right, exactly. So some cool new information that's now provided, which you'll probably be familiar with a lot of portfolio apps, is obviously the price of the crypto. So with each wallet, it shows you what is the current price to the fiat that your wallet is set to. So how many dollars per Bitcoin, dollars per Litecoin, British pounds per Monero, shows right inside of the wallet list screen. And as well, now you get a 24-hour price change difference. So you can see if the coins have gone up or down, what percentage they've gone up and down over the past 24 hours. And in the future, we'll add, 7-day, 30-day, maybe 6-month. But right now, it's just a 24-hour price difference.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. It's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, it's something I think people come to expect out of portfolio apps, even though this is more than a portfolio app. It is your portfolio, but it's actually a transactional app. So that's been changed as far on a UI level. What else do we do here, William?
So the big thing that I was working on was the two-factor notification. So if you have two-factor turned on and you somehow lose your device, you lose your two-factor codes, there's a way you can reset two-factor.
Right.
And what we do during that time is we set the reset, and then for a week we notify the phone, any phone that has that account, like, hey, someone's trying to log in. Is this you? If it's you, you can approve it. If it's not, change your password. Someone's guessed it.
Got it. So we made those notifications more reliable.
Right.
They operate without a central server, so meaning that you don't need to push the notification to the phones. The phones can actually go and grab them. We don't rely on Apple's infrastructure.
The phone wakes up every 12 hours now and does a quick HTTP request, to figure out, is there a pending account on this device? And if so, it notifies, and if not, it does nothing. It goes back to sleep.
Right. That's an important security measure that we have, because obviously if an account was attempted to be logged in and it had 2FA enabled, we want to make sure the user has an opportunity to cancel that a login request if it wasn't them. And it's a key piece of how we do 2FA because we could send a text message, we could send an email,
but then we'd have to know your information, and we don't want to know what your email address or your text messages are. We don't know any of that stuff the way it is right now.
So it's one of the trade-offs we make for privacy and usability. We say, okay, we don't want to know people's information, but we need a different way to contact them if a kind of rogue attacker is trying to log into their account and 2FA is enabled. So that's been optimized and made more efficient and also much more reliable. So that got into the previous release as well.
We got updates to Cefello and Banksa.
Cool. All
so
right,
if you're in Europe and you're using either of those two services, I think you'll find that Banksa now works in the UK.
Awesome, huge market, obviously in crypto with London, one of the financial capitals of the world. Banksa, one of our partners out of Australia, actually, originally Australia. They were one of the old buy-sell services in Australia, originally called, I think, bitcoin.com.au, and then had a slight rebrand, relaunch as Banksa as a service for companies like us to integrate. They just launched in the UK, and I think this is one of the very few services that lets people in the UK use a very native payment method called faster payments. And a lot of people in the UK are very accustomed to faster payments, kind of like we're used to PayPal over here in the US. And that payment gets sent near instant, and they send you Bitcoin. Usually, I couldn't use it because I was obviously not from the UK. I'm here in California in the US, but we're hearing it's either near instant to within 30 to 60 minutes.
Nice.
So at a very reasonable fee, it's usually a couple %, very fast, easy, convenient way to get Bitcoin. If you're in the UK, definitely give it a try. It's integrated right now inside of Edge. Just say where you're at, just click the buy cryptocurrency button, specify that you're in the UK, and you'll have banks as an option to do faster payments. And then what do we add with, so you said Cefello updated?
Denmark and sell support?
Yeah, so Cefello was originally just a way for people to buy, right? And so it supported one of the native payment methods for Sweden, and now they're allowing you to sell. So this is great, especially in a market where
again, it's one of those things where neither of us are Europeans, right? We both here in California, so it's like Cefello. It's like I've vaguely seen some of their scenes, but I've never used it.
Yeah, we don't get to use these very often, so we're relying on our user base to actually go through, test them, experience it, as well as the team over at Cefello. But they've been around for quite some time. They also have been supporting Bitcoin and crypto and fiat on and off ramps for a number of years. Great article on Yahoo Finance mentioned Cefello and the importance of partnerships between companies, and it mentioned primarily Cefello and Edge.
Oh, nice.
And so great article talking about our industry as a whole. And so now people in Sweden have been able to buy inside of Edge using Cefello, and now they can actually sell as well. In addition, they now added support for a second payment mechanism. Used to be Swish, and now they also support another one called Bankgirot or Giro. So once again, we're unfamiliar with these payment mechanisms, but for the people we've talked to, they're very common in Sweden. And so now you have multiple payment methods. And then they support another region, which was
Denmark.
Denmark, correct. So now users in Denmark can use Cefello to buy and sell. And so more options. We love being able to partner with these companies that can provide these like really boots in the ground native payment mechanisms in the various regions of the world that we're not so familiar with.
So speaking of Sweden, for Christmas Eve, we're actually going to be making Swedish meatballs.
Oh, there you go.
That's our contribution to Christmas Eve dinner at our family's place.
Good old Swedish meatballs. They know how to do meat over there and fish. I've been to Sweden a couple times. Good spot. And so for all of our Swedish users, definitely give it a try. Send us your feedback. If you happen to be tuned in right now, feel free to ask us any questions about it. We actually do have a few questions here.
Customer questions or viewer questions, I guess.
So can't quite read this name, but Bahemwiswararo Akiredi, and he asked, is this app related to blockchain? So yes and no. So he did say lowercase blockchain, and so obviously it talks to cryptocurrency blockchains. Edge is in a way an interface to many different blockchains.
Well, for some context on why we're laughing about this question,
exactly.
Because back in 2015 was the year of blockchain. So Bitcoin was the thing that had kind of come onto the scene. Satoshi invented it. Everybody thought Bitcoin was really awesome as a currency. And then in around 2015, people started to realize that blockchains could be used for more than just currencies.
They started to think that
Well-
and be excited about it. Let's
Well,
put
I
it that
mean,
way.
some things
kinda
you
could.
can,
Some things you
like
can.
immutable records.
That's
right?
true. Very much true.
Names, right? Naming
Like name
systems.
registration,
Yeah,
right?
there's a handful of things, or financial derivatives like what you have on Ethereum, a lot of smart contracts.
Yep.
There's a handful of things that aren't.
Like straightforward.
They're not just like
currency.
money, right? Handing you money, handing me money, right? They're,
Yep.
they're more like high level products built on top of the same technology that makes Bitcoin possible. So 2015, everybody was like, oh, we don't do Bitcoin anymore. We're blockchain.
Blockchain,
you know?
yes.
And it was like this kind of marketing
Hot word
push.
marketing push.
Yeah. But in the end, 90% of the things people wanted to put on the blockchain don't
Died.
actually benefit from the blockchain.
They don't work. There's just a big marketing stunt. And admittedly, if your goal, even in large enterprises, was to raise funding within the company to do some project, mentioning blockchain was actually a way to get that funding, even if all you needed to do is just upgrade some systems. And so it was kind of blockchain as an excuse. And yeah, it kind of worked in that sense. Ironically, so I'm looking at this question, and for the first time, someone actually spelled blockchain right. They put a space between block and chain.
Oh, that's true.
Because in the original white paper, there was no word blockchain.
Blockchain, yeah.
That word didn't exist. It was always two separate words. It was a chain of blocks, right? And so hence blockchain. And so to answer the question once again more thoroughly, what we have to do with blockchain is the fact that we talk to blockchains.
Yeah. So blockchain is the technology that makes Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these other things possible.
Correct.
And so in the sense that Edge is able to use Bitcoin, use Ethereum and all these other coins, we are a blockchain app.
Yeah.
But we're not a blockchain all one word 2015 buzzword style app.
Yeah,
Because
like-
we're a cryptocurrency app.
Yeah, we're a
first and
cryptocurrency
foremost.
app, and every cryptocurrency, almost every, uses a blockchain underneath, right? Or what we would normally consider as a blockchain. So yes,
With a few little exceptions.
got it. And actually, this person mentioned that I am learning Hyperledger blockchain, and no, we don't currently interface with Hyperledger. And fundamentally, I feel like Hyperledger came in that exact period that you're referring to, where blockchain is the cool thing and cryptocurrency isn't. But you're welcome to learn it, study it, but hopefully transition over and actually learn about real cryptocurrency blockchains, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and whatnot. But thanks for asking the question, Bahemwararo Akiredi. So apologize if I totally
Valiant
butchered that name.
effort to-
It was as best as I could to try to pronounce that name. Heck, people mispronounce my name all the time. So cool, thanks for that question. We were chatting about some of the new regions, Swedish meatballs, and other stuff that we've updated inside of the application. So we do have Cefello, Banks of UK, as well, an update onto our tokens.
Oh, sigh and die.
Right.
Okay, so funny story. Dai came on the scene with a really cool dollar-based coin. So one Dai equals one US dollar, which is a valuable.
Pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close, right? Yeah.
Right.
Their way that they achieved that was through backing it with other crypto. So you put Ethereum on deposit, and then that would give the Dai some value. And if the price of the dollar goes up relative to Ethereum, or vice versa, then they would have to either collect more collateral or sell the collateral to
Correct.
maintain that balance. So anyways, this cool financial system that's decentralized.
Correct. So the collection of that collateral was not in a company's hands. It was in a smart contract running on Ethereum, right? So it was a smart contract that effectively controlled and held that money and chose whether or not to sell some of it off or, motivate people to put more collateral in.
Right.
Cool. All right. So continue.
Cool project, really nice technology. We are excited about decentralized stablecoins. The centralized stablecoins, where someone collects $1 billion into a bank account and says, "Trust us, we have your money. We're not evilly siphoning it off," or and
Right,
you're like, "Well,
exactly.
we don't know. Is the money really there?" We don't like those projects as much as we like.
Right. They're good. They're a bridge. It's the old world system that we've done for years. It works until it doesn't work, and we know the cases where it doesn't work, but at least it's a bit more known. It's familiar.
It's based on human trust.
It's human trust,
Different
exactly.
projects like, USDC coin maybe has more trust than some other projects. Who
Exactly.
can say, right? But the question is, do you trust? Whereas with DAI,
Exactly.
you don't trust. You trust the smart contract was coded correctly, which is a much better.
Which is long term, I fundamentally think is a far, far, far better model. Short term, people don't know whether or not the code has any bugs, right? Or just has and not even bugs intentional, but bugs in the sense that the game theory of the smart contract works, and it motivates people well enough to make sure that the coin stays stable. So I think long term, we're going to iron out these issues in game theory and economics and have a great stable coin that doesn't have a third party. But in the interim, I think that's the reason why we have both.
Yeah.
Is that people are like, oh, I'll put some money in
What do
DAI,
you
I'll
trust
trade
more,
with it.
coding skills or like
a
honesty
third,
skills?
honesty and people that have been holding your money, which I think you can trust short term, but long term, like we found that there's too much motivation to break that trust.
Yeah.
You know, but so anyway, going back to
So
the
anyway,
changes.
DAI is awesome, relatively speaking, and they decided they were going to make it even more awesome by accepting not just Ether but multi-collateral, multiple coins as collateral for this thing.
Got it.
So in doing so, of course, now the code that makes DAI work is now going to be different code. It's a whole different piece of software because it now has other features in it, right? So that means that the new DAI is actually a whole different coin than the old DAI.
Right.
Which is a very strange situation where you have, you've taken the name with you, but you've changed what it is.
We've changed what we call a contract address. Basically, the program that holds the money is now a completely different program. It's almost like you created you had Bank of America, and then you created a whole nother bank, but you called that one Bank of America. But it doesn't have any of the money that the old bank had, and you actually have to go and transfer your money over.
Right.
Yep.
So that's a very confused. So cool that they're upgrading the smart contract. Boo in that the sense that now we have this weird situation where there's two DAIs. There's the old DAI and the new DAI, and they have the same name, but they're like completely different coins. And if you have a balance in old DAI, that doesn't just automatically become new DAI.
New DAI, right.
So what happened is they actually renamed the old DAI to Psi.
All right, SAI.
Okay, so now if you have DAI in your Edge wallet, then now you have Psi. They just renamed it, and you don't have any DAI anymore. The thing that's called DAI is a new thing that you can get.
Got it. So what do users have to do
in
this sense? They've updated Edge.
So we've updated Edge to kind of deal with this chaos that's happening out there. Not our fault, right? But we have to adapt to it and help you guys with it as well. So what you need to do is you need to re-enable Psi.
Right.
Go into your Edge wallet and take the little slider that says Psi and turn that thing on. And then you will see your Psi balance, which is your old DAI.
Got it. Yep.
And if you're cool with that, if you like that, then you can just keep a hold of it and have your balance stay stable to the dollar. But if you want to upgrade to the new hotness, you can use our swap feature to convert the Psi to DAI.
Exactly. So hit the exchange button on the bottom right or in the slide out menu. You choose the source currency or wallet as your Psi wallet, which should have your balance from before you upgraded Edge. And then choose the destination wallet as DAI, which would be the new hotness. And then just simply convert over your balance. Usually that will very likely, actually almost certainly use one of our partners, which accesses decentralized exchanges, our partner Total.
Total is pretty cool.
It is really cool. And the nice thing is it's fast.
Yeah.
Right. So pretty much when you send out that transaction, in the same transaction, you're going to receive the money back. And
So
it just takes.
it's like not even instant. It's like negative. Actually,
Yeah,
it's instant.
It's the same transaction.
Truly instant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same transaction. Really, all you're waiting for is a confirmation.
Yeah.
So basically, as soon as you get the confirmation, then that money is in your hands. And so we do recommend that people do upgrade their Psi to DAI, as many services are going to start only accepting DAI. One case in point example is another partner of ours, Wire. So Wire allows people to buy and sell crypto from a US bank account. And the crypto that they support is Bitcoin, Ether, and DAI. And so if you have the old Psi, you'll want to convert that to DAI before you can go and actually transact it on Wire. So it does, require a bit of this little swap, but it's not too hard. Thanks to our exchange functionality and Total, it's a few taps and then your balance gets converted at a very, the fees that I experienced were quite low, well less than 1% to do that conversion. And so definitely give it a try and get your balance over. There is a point where the team at Maker has stated that they are going to really deprecate Psi, because realize that as people move over into DAI, not Psi, not the old one, that a lot of the collateral is going to move. And if there's almost no collateral left in Psi, then there's not a whole lot that's effectively keeping it stable.
Right.
Right. So we do recommend people move over into DAI, which is now backed by not just Ether, but more assets, enabling it to be more stable and backed by a larger amount of value, which is important.
Well, isn't it? And maybe I'm wrong, but can you get liquidated? Like if I'm holding a bunch of old DAI tokens and the liquidity just falls out from underneath it, Would I get liquidated and just have Ether?
So it's not that you get liquidated because you're holding a token, you're not holding the Ether. It's just simply that somebody that wants to sell the DAI for Ether won't get any Ether. And so therefore the DAI will lose value. And in the open marketplace where you can buy and sell DAI, it will no longer be worth $1.
Got it.
Right? So the arbitrage opportunity to stabilize it will start to decrease. Like you don't just magically get Ether, right? You only have this ERC20 token, but its value is no longer backed. It might not be backed by enough Ether to hold $1.
So that sounds like I would.
Yes.
If I was holding that, I'd want to upgrade.
Yeah, definitely upgrade. You know, it should be pretty easy. A few caveats because of the architecture of Edge. I think we talked about this a bit before the podcast, but the transaction history and the metadata.
Oh, right.
So there's a few caveats to that.
So in our wallet, we record what the transactions were. We cache them on disk based on the currency code, right? The name,
Right.
like DAI, right? So if you are upgrading, you may find that your transaction history gets messed up because
It's a little messed up, yep.
transactions are recorded as being DAI transactions, even though DAI is now something different. So if
Correct.
that happens, easy thing, you just tap the 3 dots and you hit resync.
So
Are those 3 dots still there?
Oh yeah. No, we can resync any wallet, and what the resync does is it basically wipes out any memory of the transactions that are local on your phone, and it regrabs it off the blockchain. So one thing that you'll notice when you enable Psi in the wallet is that once you do that, it's now querying the blockchain for all of your transactions in Psi, and then those will show inside of the Psi wallet, but it won't have any metadata. So you may have had metadata in your DAI transactions from before, but those were associated with a different currency code. They were associated with DAI. So in Psi, they'll just show you this much money went out, this much money went in, this went out, this went in, but there'll be raw transactions with, missing the information of did I send it to this person, did I receive it from that person. Even the fiat values that occurred at the time will effectively be kind of wiped out and incorrect. So this is an unfortunate caveat of the architecture of Edge, is that we do tie that metadata to a specific currency code. Now your old DAI wallet, if you don't resync it, will show all of your old transactions. It'll show all of the old metadata, but as soon as that gets resynced, it'll only show your new DAI transactions. And this has actually happened before with Rep. So Rep changed their contract address. They don't have 2 Rep. There's not like old Rep and new Rep. Right? You only had one kind of Rep. So at a certain point, you said, okay, this is now the new contract address. And we switched it inside of Edge. And at that point, you saw your balance correctly, but then your transaction history would effectively get wiped out. And that's pretty much true of most any wallet. It's just that new contract address has no transaction history behind it. You just magically have a balance there because they just transfer balances over. So that's kind of the unfortunate nature of kind of cryptocurrency tokens and contract addresses and these. It's almost like a hard fork of a token. So we do our best to give you the best user experience and be able to know what transactions you did. If you do genuinely care about the transaction history and notes
For like tax purposes.
That's a great reason. Then we do recommend that before you resync your DAI wallet, that you export the transaction history.
We do have a CSV export.
Yep, exactly. CSV and QuickBooks, QuickBooks export. I did exactly that. So, I upgraded Edge, enabled Psi, and then exported my transactions from DAI. And so I know I at least have that should I ever resync or install in a new phone, because then I'm only going to get the new transactions. So just a heads up, it's a weird corner case caveat, but it can happen. We're in a bit of a new world order here.
Yeah.
But we're doing our best. So do upgrade your DAI and Psi. Cool. I think one last thing that kind of came across our plate that we were gonna
That
talk
article
about
Bitcoin confirmations.
article. Actually, let's see. There was a comment, but not necessarily a question on YouTube. So yeah, an article about confirmations. And so there's an article with a few math researchers that suggested 6 confirmations aren't really needed for Bitcoin transactions. And this is an interesting title because it implies that before this title, everyone thought you needed 6. Right? So I have never felt that you needed 6 definitively.
Well,
because
6 comes from the original Satoshi white paper. Where
Right.
he did a little bit of math and he said, okay, what is the probability of this transaction getting dropped from the blockchain? And based on that math, he concluded that 6 was like, you're absolutely 100% certain. Well, not 100%, but it was like within
Yeah.
any reasonable doubt, you're definitely getting this transaction in.
Right. But the interesting question I always have when someone says 6 is, well, what does it take to reverse it, and why would it happen?
Well, so there's kind of two things that can reverse a transaction in a blockchain. One is malicious actors
Correct.
choosing to go back in time and rewrite blocks.
Correct. Basically having enough hash power to create blocks faster than everyone else.
Right.
Correct. And we've seen this in other blockchains where they've done exactly this, hundreds of blocks.
Oh yeah, yeah. There have been a financially motivated attacks where what they would do is they would send millions of dollars to exchanges,
Yep.
trade those out for other coins, then go back in time and rewrite those transactions so they no longer sent the money to the exchange, and then they'd have
Exactly.
both coins.
Exactly.
And to do so would cost, tens of thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. But, if you're
You
sending
make a few
millions, you're making
You don't
money
care.
off of this.
Exactly.
So really, I've never believed the 6 confirmation thing.
Right.
I've always thought the way you tell if a transaction is secure is the cost of rewriting it higher
Exactly.
than the cost of what the coins are worth.
Exactly. That's how I've always felt as well, because there's a certain amount of hash power. I mean, heck, people have always said hash power and the dollar amount that goes into the hash power is what creates security. So when Bitcoin's worth more, there's more dollar value that miners get to reap as a reward. So therefore, there's more energy and money they can put into mining, and therefore more secure the chain is.
Right.
But if the chain is more secure, then why should the number always be 6?
Exactly.
So 6 being kind of a less relevant number rather than the amount of money involved.
Right. So it's always been based on the money. And so these guys actually did a math based on the money.
Right. And specifically for Bitcoin, which obviously has the most amount of money going into hashing.
And their answer is 2.
2.
Which is frustrating to me because it's 2, like for Bitcoin, like based on what value? If I'm transferring $1 billion
Correct.
of Bitcoin, is it still 2?
Right. And if you were to somehow move the entire value of Bitcoin in a single transaction, all the entire market cap, which is pretty much unfeasible. Like you can't imagine the entire market cap moving, but at its absolute extreme, yes, you could. You could transfer every single Bitcoin that's ever been mined, all 18 million Bitcoin, and transferring that in a single transaction. Now, would you be motivated? Would that be enough value for you to try to unwind 2 transactions?
Probably.
And possibly. So I think you're exactly right. Is really how hard is it to create or unwind the chain? How much money do you have to put in to unwind the chain relative to how much value is actually moving in those transactions that would get confirmed in those blocks?
Right.
And that's the number you really need to determine. And that's a hard number to calculate. Probably the best off-the-cuff figure would be, you'd have to know, for example, what is the hashing algorithm of a specific chain?
Well, I would say it's actually pretty straightforward. What is the reward per block? Right? If Bitcoin's paying out 6.25 Bitcoins per block,
Oh, very true.
then anything less than 6 Bitcoins needs 1 confirmation, or it's anything more, if I have 12, then that's 2 blocks. 3, blocks would be 18, and so forth.
And that's actually a good point, because even though there's a lot of variability in the cost of mining, it trends towards the price of the coin.
Right.
Right. In the end, it's the price of the coin, how many coins are issued, and the frequency that it's issued. So the reason why, if you're on some tiny shit coin, you'll want hundreds of transactions is if each block is only worth a few dollars.
Well, I mean, if Dogecoin's paying out like 1 Doge per block, I don't know what it pays out. I haven't looked that up. But say it's
Right.
1, and I want to transfer 1 million Dogecoin, then theoretically I need 1 million blocks.
Right. Because otherwise, that's how much it costs to unwind that transaction, and therefore you lose
That's
the
how
value.
many. That's how many mining rewards you'd have to sacrifice to unwind that and go forward.
Exactly. And so keep that in mind. So there's this calculation. I think what they're probably looking at is, when they determine 2, maybe they're considering what value is typically transacted on the chain and making estimates as to what that value is.
I think they're based on like the average size of transactions
Exactly.
and stuff like that. It seems to imply some of that sort of stuff based
Right.
on real world numbers that they throw into their model.
Which is even hard to determine, because when you see a transaction, you don't actually know how much money is transferred, because some of it could be change.
That's
right?
true. But I think they said for transactions less than the value of the block reward. I think that said that in there.
Right. Then you can easily calculate that, of course.
Which when the answer is 2, so it's like 1 block reward, 2 block rewards, done.
Right,
Because now
right.
you've doubled the amount of the value of the money.
Exactly. And then you're better off just honest mining
Yeah.
at that point. So interesting analysis that came out. But yeah, in the end, it's how much you're transacting and how valuable is the chain. to really determine how many confirmations you should wait. And that I don't think will ever change, no matter how valuable Bitcoin is. Because
Unless you go to proof of stake or something.
you're right. Then the entire economic model completely changes, and you got a whole lot of a lot of questions to ask. Some of which are in some ways better, and some of which are worse. But cool. Hopefully that gives people a little bit of insight. And we are now wrapping up. So obviously, the last thing we typically wrap up is what are we up to as far as events through the end of the year. We're just having a good time with the holidays.
Making
right?
meatballs, apparently.
Yeah, Swedish meatballs. I'll be making some Baileys, like I just did recently. Maybe a semi-fried turkey. But going into next year, we'll be over at the TNABC North American Bitcoin Conference in Miami, going on January, I want to say 15th, 16th. Can anyone confirm for me around that time frame? As well, right before that, we will be at the Tampa Bay Block Spaces meetup. I believe it's going to be Tuesday, I believe around the 14th of January. So that week is kind of our Florida week, experiencing what's hopefully the decently good weather in the middle of winter. So thanks a lot, everybody. Check you out later. And remember,
Not your keys, not your coins.
yes, exactly. Have a great Friday.